Okay, welcome back to the Nick and Joe Show, folks. It's the final segment straight ahead, the last half hour. We're going to be talking a little bit of American politics just because it's so much fun. And like Joseph, I watched a little bit of the debate. I couldn't take too much of it. I thought the moderator was terrible. It was tough to watch.
Are you talking about the last debate, Nick?
The most recent one.
Okay, so you know there were two presidential debates, right?
Yes. The first one was even worse.
Oh, yeah, the first one was awful.
This one was only terrible.
That's funny. I didn't think that the moderator was too bad in this one. But anyway, go on, Nick.
I didn't like it because of the way that she wouldn't let, well, I just didn't like her style, put it that way.
Okay.
Overall, that was the better of the two debates. And I think that Joe Biden did not come off very well, because when the issue of Hunter Biden was raised about making money in China and where did that look, that news has been all over the place, and you have to have a better answer than just that's not true, which is the only thing Biden ever countered with. And then he tried to say that Trump had business in China, he had a business account. Trump explained it, said I closed that business down, I closed that bank account down before I became president. And, it's not an issue. And everybody knows about it. It's public knowledge. So I think Trump really took it to Biden. And it wasn't a pretty thing to watch. Because, look, I think Trump is the better president, but he is sometimes really irritating to watch based on his style. Now, one of the things that I give him credit for was the recent appointment to the Supreme Court with, what's her name? The latest Supreme Court, a female, very social conservative. She's Catholic. She has a large family, adopted a lot of people, a lot of children into her family, and the left absolutely did everything it could to try to derail her nomination, and now she's on the Supreme Court. So I liked his pick. I liked the fact that she was nominated and passed. But as far as the debate goes, it was tough. I couldn't watch too much of it because it was predictable for one thing. And on the other hand, Joe Biden had nothing to offer. He was just repeating the same old things he always says.
Right.
And I just don't trust the man. I don't think he's presidential material. Like him or hate him, Trump has done a much better job than he's given credit for.
Right. Well, there's no secret I don't like Donald Trump's style. So it just rubs me the wrong way. By the way, Nick, it's worth noting that, for people listening to the live show, this is Wednesday night. But if you're catching the podcast first thing on Tuesday morning, it is actually Election Day in the United States. So I just think it's worth noting that, even though for the live show we're still about 6 days away. But if you're listening to this segment on fresh on Tuesday morning when it just got posted, the last segment of this week's episode on the Nick and Joe Show, it is Election Day in the United States. So it'll be really interesting to see. Talking about, let's first of all just talk a little bit about, as you started out, Nick, the last presidential debate. I agree with you that I think President Trump, if I had to say there was a winner or a loser, I think that Trump won the debate. I don't think that there was any knockout punches, but, there were a few things that he scored some pretty strong hits on. And the main thing is that he proved that if he just exercises some self-discipline and just stays quiet and lets his opponent talk, that eventually his opponent is going to, in this case Joe Biden, is going to say something that is significantly damaging to himself and his campaign. And, of course, Joe was happy to oblige, particularly towards the end when they were talking about energy independence and fracking and drilling for oil, etc. And when Biden basically said, I intend to phase all that out within 15 years, I think he was talking about. And if you go to going back to the previous debate, some of the stuff that Biden has talked about, retrofitting, I think he talks about 4 million, although he probably said 400 million buildings. Of course, retrofitting them to what, I don't know, to solar heat, to wind power. Yeah. I don't know.
Let's just call it new green standards.
It's, these guys that, again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be environmentally conscientious. And, as funny, Trump could just as easily have been using the lines that we recommended over and over and over again to conservative candidates here in Canada that we've spoken to, both in leadership races and in individual constituencies. We keep saying to them, forget about climate change promises and just stick with, what people can understand and grasp and what they really want. They want clean air, clean land, and clean water. So just talk about that, clean air, clean land, clean water, because ultimately that's what a sound environmental policy is going to give you. Clean air, clean land, clean water. Okay, so Trump actually talked that way. It used that kind of language in the second debate. What exactly is it that the Green Plan in the United States is supposed to be delivering? I just don't get it. Okay, you cannot simply wave your magic wand and poof, you're able to retrofit 4 million or 400 million buildings, and retrofit them, as I said, to what? To electricity? I mean, you don't generate enough electricity in order to produce the energy. You don't produce enough electricity, and you don't have the distribution network for the electricity to be able to accomplish those goals. It's just dreaming in Technicolor, and it's people believe it because they have no idea of any of the basic engineering behind all of this stuff. But it's not possible. You have to generate the electricity, which means you're going to have to build generating plants, and you don't want to fire the generating plants with coal or with gas or with oil. So how are you going to generate this electricity? Well, you have to do it with hydro, with water. You're not going to generate the kind of consistent electricity that you need on such a massive scale with wind or with solar. It's technically not feasible. So where they come up with these ideas, Nick, it's beyond me. And we're veering back into the whole climate change business, but how could we not?
Yeah.
One area where, interestingly enough, the government, I think, did an interesting job that was quite environmentally friendly is in finding alternative energy sources for their big warships. It used to be a battleship used to be powered by coal, and then it was powered by oil, and then it was powered by nuclear. And these ships can run on clean nuclear fuel for decades and decades and decades, and there are zero greenhouse gas emissions, etc. But I digress.
You do and you don't, because what these eco dreamers don't seem to understand is, like money, electricity does not grow on trees. You can't just snap your fingers and have 42 more million megawatts of power or terawatts of power at your disposal just to feed your fantasy. I mean, look, it's one thing to imagine something in a video game and just, suspend all the laws of physics just to make the game work. That's one thing. But this isn't a game. You're messing with people's lives. You're messing with their incomes. You're messing with their ability to conduct their affairs how they see fit, which is not the role of government. And I'm just, like you, I am fed up. We already have, if they were serious about dealing with climate, you're right about clean air, clean water, and clean soil. That's where they would focus. And the easiest way to do this, in my mind, if you don't want to build a new fossil fuel plant, if you don't want to build a nuclear plant, and if you don't want to dam up any more rivers, there's a third alternative that no one, although the public's ready for it, and I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to do it again, and that is energy from waste. Why are we burying and recycling our garbage when we could be running it through a highly efficient thermal energy extractor, otherwise known, well, like you used to call them incinerators, but to call these things incinerators is like and comparing them to what was available in the 1970s is like saying a canoe and an aircraft carrier are both boats. Yeah, no, they both float, but that's where the similarity ends. They're that much different. So we have the technology, we have the ability, we could solve all kinds of environmental problems if we just put these plants up and use them to feed the grid with constant, clean, low-cost energy. But they don't want to do that because that doesn't fit in with the green model for some reason. I don't know why. I guess they'd rather bury plastic and recycle organics, which is another mystery to me. Why are we burying what we should recycle and recycle what we should be burying? I don't understand that logic. It's just that this kind of stuff just it tears at your brain. I mean, you try to hold your head together, and then somebody like Scott Moffat, councillor in the city of Ottawa, comes along and says we're going to spend $57 billion over 3 decades, and it's going to work because we're going to roll it out over 3 decades. No, what you'll do is turn the city into a wasteland because people won't be able to afford to live here.
Well, maybe that's what they want. But
if that's what they want, that's exactly what they're going to get.
Well, look, let's get back to the presidential race in the United States.
Oh yeah, that was.
I as I said, I think that Trump won the debate. It'll be interesting, because Americans are going to the polls. Again, if you're listening to the podcast, you're listening on Tuesday morning or sometime on Tuesday, and again, the polls have been really interesting, and I want to say that it's almost a repeat. It's at least it's appeared to be almost a repeat of what we saw in 2016. And time will tell. Of course, we'll see what things are going to what things are going to look like later on when the polls close. But I will be surprised. I have to tell you, notwithstanding what the polls say, and I've seen good polls and bad polls, by the way, okay, for Trump. So it's not by any stretch of the imagination a slam dunk for Biden. But notwithstanding what the polls say, I have to tell you, I'm going to be surprised if it turns out that Biden wins, because I just have not seen from the Democrats the kind of enthusiasm that I've seen from Trump supporters. And I think it's fair to say that Trump supporters are underrepresented in most of the polls that I've seen for a number of technical reasons. I think that that's going to turn out to be an issue. But again, we're speaking of the future here, and who really knows. Here's an interesting question. The question is, what president would be better for Canada, for Canadians? Because my sense is that most Canadians probably prefer or probably don't like Donald Trump.